Good morning, folks. My name is Robert Coulter. I'm the General Manager for Partnerships here at the AFA, and I'm extremely excited to introduce you to today's webinar titled Connecting Your Clients Online, Best Practice Social Media and Marketing. So this is an AFA in practice series webinar designed and delivered by advice professionals, so you get firsthand, immediately implementable tools and tips to grow your knowledge and your business. We all know how important marketing is, both during a crisis and beyond it. Now is the time to invest in your online marketing strategy and get your online profile working for you to attract and connect with new and existing clients. Today, you'll hear from industry marketing expert Jenny Pearse, who will be facilitating today's webinar with two fantastic advisors, Rebecca Pritchard and Hugh Robertson. Jenny is Managing Director of Genesis, a business and marketing consultancy she founded in 2006. So for the past 14 years, Jenny has been helping financial services organisations, financial advisors, and their teams to succeed in a rapidly changing landscape. With a keen focus on digital media and using technology as a platform to engage, Jenny has helped transform many businesses to thrive in today's digital world. Rebecca Pritchard is AFA's 2018 Rising Star of the Year as a new breed of advisor, a passionate and driven personal financial coach who is leading the charge in intentional living and clever money, bursting to help others to build their wealth and live their best life. Alongside her role as a senior financial planner at award-winning Melbourne financial services business Rising Tide, Rebecca is an active blogger and financial expert in the media. Hugh Robertson is CEO of Centaur Financial Services, a private wealth firm based on the Gold Coast. AFA's 2018 Advisor of the Year, Hugh was also awarded the 2019 Independent Financial Advisor Goals-Based Advisor of the Year, and his business, Centaur, a finalist for Boutique Advice Firm of the Year. Hugh is passionate about giving back to the industry and has a strong focus on his team and the client experience and how to continue to test and iterate to build a world-class client experience. So before we begin, I'd just like to cover off some of the webinar housekeeping. So today's webinar has one CPD hour available, and we'll send that out to you next week. We will answer questions at the end of this presentation, so please use the Zoom Q&A feature, not the chat feature that you see there, but the Q&A feature, as you can see in the diagram there. I'm incredibly excited about today. Jenny, Rebecca and Hugh, thank you for putting this important information together to help our members. Let's kick this off and over to you, Jenny.
Thanks so much, Rob, and welcome. You know, I'm in extremely esteemed company this morning with obviously two AFA Award winners. Thank you both for joining me. How are you both?
Thanks for having us. We're excited.
How are you, Hugh?
Good, really good.
Good. And obviously coming out of isolation and surviving pandemic, we've got lots to share this morning. I want to talk digital marketing. Obviously, it's a very special place in my heart, this particular topic. But I happen to know that it's also something that you both invest in, enjoy to varying degrees. So let's get into the first question that I think is the all-important one, and that is, why use digital marketing and what role does social media play for you? Who wants to kick off? Maybe go with you, Beck?
Yeah, sure. I think for me, it has really two clear roles. One is around reach, and that's having a platform over whatever platform it is, but being really clear about your views and extending to people that you might not otherwise reach, you know, beyond your network, the sharing impact. The second is people look you up. Like, everyone loves to stalk now. And so you need to be there and you need to be found, because if people aren't able to verify who you are or what you stand for, they may not actually reach out to you. We know that people, you probably know better than me, Jenny, if it's sort of 7 to 10 touch points before customers will end up reaching out to you. And if you can give them those touch points via social media, it makes life a lot easier.
Correct. What's your thoughts, Hugh?
I think digital marketing
sits as a subset of marketing in totality, but it's an increasingly important avenue, especially for advisors where we've probably collectively been a bit late to the game with it. And we're still probably unsure how we utilize it in terms of personal and business brand. But as we don't get the referrals from traditional sources as much, being professional networks potentially, it becomes ever increasingly important. And I agree with Beck's points on reach and trust. If people see your name enough and what your message is, and it also helps you with fits, you get your ideal clients. So you can, by being authentic with that, you can actually grow the business the way you want.
Yeah, I think the thing from to add to what you both said, which was great, I think the important thing about digital marketing is to remember that it is about the people, it is about the connection, and that, you know, that realistically going digital is just really moving with the times. That's the way we live life today, and we just need to, you know, continue to evolve the way we do things to make sure we remain relevant and we remain in the environment that the people we want to do business with exist in. And that's what digital marketing will allow you to do. In respect of social media, I think, you know, it's important not to obsess over that being the only element of what digital marketing is about. And we'll cover off on this a little bit more, but, you know, social media is simply a tool, a conduit to which you use to amplify your message, and not to obsess over it being the only component of what digital marketing is all about. I've been rereading the Icarus Deception by Seth Godin, an amazing marketing, ginormous, amazing guy, you know, in this space, and he talks about the connection economy. And I'm pretty sure that the word economy, you know, every financial advisor's ears prick up at the moment. But if we're to talk about the connection economy, then what digital marketing does is allow us to bring ourselves closer in abundance with connection to the people we want to actually serve. And I think that's the important part to remember. So, you know, get used to hearing the connection economy, because I think that's a big part of where we will see digital marketing go, not only right now, but certainly over the next 10 years as platforms and digital marketing evolves. So you mentioned very briefly there, Hugh, about brand, personal brand, business brand. How important do you think it is? You know, is it personal brand versus business brand, or is it one over the other, or are they side by side? What's your thoughts?
I think they can sit parallel to each other to an extent. For me, I suppose it started with personal brand, not in the digital space, but personal brand by word of mouth from existing clients. And that grew to the point where now we are trying to grow where the personal brand was lovely in that space. And now we're trying to grow a business brand in the digital space, because personally, I'm probably at a point where, and probably we're at a point where we don't need any more clients. But as a business, I now have more people on the team who are ready to help serve clients. And while they're on their journey growing their personal brand, they can leverage off the business brand of Centaur Financial Services. Mm-hmm. So sitting in parallel, but definitely you both need both to be good. Not great having a good personal brand if your corporate brand isn't very appetizing. Beck, thoughts?
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I come at it from a different perspective, because I'm not a business owner. And so I've had limited capacity compared to you, Hugh, around growing the company brand. And so I've been able to contribute to that over my career, but my personal brand is something that I had 100% control over. And so doing what I can as a team player, but then also amplifying my own stamp on things has been something that I think a lot of people think as a team member or as a junior burger in various organizations that you may not have capacity to do that, but I'd really challenge that perspective, and it's something that I've seen a lot of success in over the last few years.
Yeah.
I think that's a massive point though, because I remember when I was an employee, I never had the courage that you've had to grow a personal brand, because I was always so scared of that. And then I remember when, 2 years ago when I started watching you, I thought, wow. And some other like great advisors out there that are really doing some good things. And I thought, it's funny, I look back now and I go, it would have been so easy to jump in and do a video or do something, but I never had the courage to do it. Whereas there's some of the guys who are a little bit younger than me, and some a little bit older, who are doing some great stuff in that space.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be one or the other, but it's both in parallel.
Yeah, I see Frank has just put a message into chat saying that he sees branding as staying in front of clients and community. Is this something we should keep pushing? My answer to that, Frank, would be that digital marketing is a marvelous way of being able to maintain brand, and brand is really about perpetuating your value system. And really that encourages know, like and trust, which is the way we connect to people. So, you know, it does give you the opportunity to amplify you and to multiply your activity, your behaviour, without necessarily having to be Johnny on the spot. I mean, as you can imagine, every single one of us here on this webinar are very busy people with a fairly busy diary each day. But you can record a video and create that on a different platform each day and you will get amplification. So I think it's really important to maintain brand. I would probably suggest to you always work on your personal brand, because we are by and large going to purchase our next piece of advice from an individual, not necessarily a business. So, you know, I would choose, you know, working with Hugh or working with Rebecca as opposed to necessarily a business brand, but the business brand should correlate with your personal brand and vice versa. So they should really hold hands. But yes, definitely agree with both of you. I think it's courageous to step out and be able to champion a personal brand when in times gone by, you know, I think 20 years ago or even 10 years ago for you, Hugh, when Centaur was first getting off the ground, you didn't have the same platforms that, you know, people like Beck and others have today to even have a personal brand.
Yeah, and we didn't think that way either. I don't think as an industry we thought about things like that. We went the traditional, you know, what are the most dangerous words in business? That's the way it's always been done. And that's exactly what Centaur did. And I think we've been able to achieve a certain level of success. But imagine if we had embraced technology, we could have got there in half the time, or, you know, you could have just seen the world a little bit differently, being a little bit more innovative and open in thinking, probably could have led to more success sooner, or maybe, you know, more lifestyle or things like that.
Yeah, so I'm going to sort of bring it back to some basics, and this was a conversation I had very recently, and I know Hugh and I have had conversations around the importance of a website. So, do you both think that in today's market you need a website?
Yes.
Who wants to go first? Yes? Pretty straightforward answer. What do you think, Hugh?
Concur. Yeah, no, absolutely. I'll bet you go first.
Oh, that was the end of my response. It's a yes. It's a hard yes.
Big caps, yes. Most people are going to want to find out about your business. That's your yellow pages now. They're going to look at the business. What I know, when they go to Centaur, I don't really want them to see a dynamic, highly responsive website with lots of flashy things, because that's not how Centaur positions. So also to sort of that comment that Frank said before about branding, it's making clients aware of what you are. So Centaur isn't a cash flow manager. That's not what we're trying to be. That's not how we're trying to position. But we kind of know our ideal clients, or what we call buyer personas. And from there, so my website is trying to speak to those people so that when they go to the website, they feel comfortable. They feel that Centaur is going to be someone who can service their needs. And they will probably look at 3 or 4 other websites around town. Now we're on the Gold Coast, so it's not as competitive as a Sydney or Melbourne market, but they'll go and look at those websites. And from there, and if you look at any accountant or yourself look at any professional service advisor, go look at 3 or 4 competitors' websites, and you would probably align yourself to the best website initially. Human nature.
Yeah, people are fickle as well. And it's judging books on their covers, and going so far. I know for me as a consumer, people don't have a website. I'm like, it's too hard. Like, they're dead to me now. I'm moving on. Whether it's buying a pizza or a financial advisor or whatever it is, it's around being accessible is super important.
Yeah, I think you're both on the money there. I think, the investment into a website is quite important. I think you can do, I know, Beck, you have a personal website, and obviously, the practice that you work with has their business website. I think these days websites are not the websites of the past. They do need to be experience orientated, and those avatars or buyer personas do need to be reflected, so that when they're going to the website, they can see themselves. They know then who it is you're dealing with, but also that they get to know you that little bit better before they take that next step in the process to, getting and receiving advice.
There's so many trust issues now with our industry, based off Royal Commission, based off all of these things that have happened, that people do want to have some of these proof points or touch points, so they start to develop some kind of trust. So I think anyone coming into a meeting, whether it be physical location or a Zoom meeting right now, they would be pretty scared, both of their own financial situation with everything that's happening, and also potentially the reputation of advisors. So the personal branding is more important than ever, definitely. And the website is, one of those mental shortcuts that we will look to see if they're reputable, like Cara Graham out at TWD in Perth or someone like that.
Yeah. Is there anything you wanted to add to that, Beck?
Look, there's websites and there's websites. So, you mentioned I've got a personal website. It's super basic. Like there aren't a lot of bells and whistles. It conveys pretty simply what I stand for and what I like to talk about. But then that's fit for purpose for me, compared to a company website, which does need a few more things on there. Maybe it needs booking links or videos and things embedded that, I don't have the mental capacity or the desire to do personally. So it doesn't need to be some fandangled thing. It needs to fit your purpose, whatever that purpose is.
And we'll talk a little bit when we get further down around tips and tools and how you can create a website relatively cost efficiently. The only thing other thing I would add to that is that your website does become a hub in your digital marketing, particularly when you form a strategy. You've got to have this feeling that all points lead to somewhere, and your website often becomes that center point that then connects people to you. It's the conduit, and so it's got to be a warm and inviting place for people to arrive at, and to get that sense of experience that they're going to have when they next come to meet, Hugh, or when they next come to meet Beck or Jenny, whatever the case may be. So I think it's really important to know that websites are still very much in favour. They just aren't necessarily the websites of the past, I would say to that. But so I want to move through to social media, because, we did mention social media at the opening, and I think it's really important to discuss, what social media platforms should people be on, and, what social media platforms have worked for you. So, Beck, I might throw this one to you first.
Yeah, all of them. So I learned a pretty harsh lesson a few years ago, which is you can't really direct people to consume you in a certain way. You've got to be there at the time they want, in the way that they want. And so using all the platforms in slightly different ways, it has become my strategy. In the absence of TikTok, we were just talking about that before. I'm not yet on that. But, like we're talking Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Medium. It's got to all be there, because, and again, thinking about myself as a consumer, I look for companies on different platforms at different times of the day. And therefore, we do need that presence everywhere.
Totally agree. What do you think, Hugh?
I like that, the saying, go to where the fish are. And that's exactly what Becca, and for us, it's important as well. And when I kind of think about it, I'm probably would think that LinkedIn would be my main strategy, because that's where most of the business people are. And that's where, from my mind, that would be things like going and saying, okay, if I want to be in the doctor's niche, why in LinkedIn are most of our friends or contacts financial advisors? You know, they should be doctors, they should be lawyers, whoever it is that we want in that space. If we're trying to build, you know, the professional services, then you go to LinkedIn. If you want the nice retirees, then you might go more Facebook. So knowing why you would go into a certain medium is important. And then the great thing about social media is, like, I know back, you know, years ago, before I wasn't even looking at social, I always wanted to get written about in a paper, a article somewhere, so that I could get some, you know, level of industry credibility. With these social media that we've got now, you don't need to actually wait for that opportunity, because that may not come. You can actually control your own destiny a lot more by having a good strategy, whether you go, you know, broad, like Beck has, or you go into one and go very deep. And I think all strategies work, because no one, we had a chat recently, all of us, and we said no one's doing it particularly well. So that's pretty low hanging fruit right now for the guys that want to go and be really well regarded in that industry, in our industry.
Yeah, and I might add to that briefly. It's not that you need to like really invest a huge amount of energy, I think, into all the platforms, but you need to be there in some capacity. Like, I will put my hand up and say, I think I have like 9 followers on YouTube. Like, YouTube is not big for me.
Make that 10, Beck. Give me a sec.
It's Rebecca Pritchard. Follow me. But if someone searches for me on there, at least I'm there. And yet, you know, I saw Phil Thompson pop up before. That might be massive for him, or Chris Carlin, but at least we're there. We're present in some way, even if it's a bit scant.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think if we had to bring it back for a moment, if there was one platform you should be on, what would that be?
Well, for you, Hugh, it's LinkedIn, because that's where you're.
Yep.
Yeah, for me, I'd say it's Instagram.
Yeah, and that really does tie back into your client, probably your client personas. You know, the type of people that you like to do business with are probably in that domain. Interestingly, we all had a little bit of fun this morning chatting, because LinkedIn Australia is the first in the world to launch stories today. On the app version of LinkedIn only, not through the browser version. So Beck and I have already put a little story post up. Interestingly, Australia is doing the world trial, so we've got it before the rest of the world, kiddos, so get on there. But at the moment, it doesn't seem to allow live video. It only allows recorded video, and it is extremely short. It is only 20 seconds. Plenty of stills, so it's worth you having a little bit of a play with it. But believe it or not, one of the little funky things that I discovered this morning when I was playing with it was that you can actually turn off your visibility. So you know how in LinkedIn, if you want to go and look at someone's profile and you don't really want them to know that you're snooping or stalking, you can turn your visibility off, or you can also turn the visibility off when you're looking at other people's stories, which you can't actually do on any other platform. So I find that really interesting. But anyway, so it's worth having a play with. I've noticed actually a couple of advisors already this morning putting stuff up. So it's interesting whether or not the advice industry will actually embrace that on that particular platform. In regards to LinkedIn for advisors, I really stress to all of you the importance of recognising that your LinkedIn profile is your personal website. So for the lack of having a personal website, as Beck has, you know, and many others do, I would suggest to you, you realize that it is not a CV. It is just not a cardboard cutout of you. It is a virtual version of you, and that people will go and look at your website as a source of trust. So, you know, stress testing that you are who you say you are. So, you know, take the time and invest in completing your LinkedIn profile. It is really quite critical. Google does really love LinkedIn, and it will help you in your rankings, in your searchability. And I'm pretty sure that's very, very important for all of us. So it will also support your website. So I think if you invest in it, the other thing that I, you know, I did some sessions with some advisors yesterday reviewing their LinkedIn profiles. One of the most critical things is to actually customize your URL so you own your name, so that no one else can be Rebecca Pritchard or Jenny Pearse or Hugh Robertson. And, you know, that when you create your LinkedIn profile, LinkedIn will, you know, provide a very general, multi-purpose sort of, you know, URL. Go in there and actually make it yours and own your brand. So that's my big hot tip for LinkedIn. But definitely work to the platforms where you know your clients exist. That's the key. If they're not on TikTok, don't be on TikTok. You know, if they're not on Pinterest, don't be on Pinterest. If they are on Facebook, if they are on LinkedIn, they are on Instagram, on Twitter, you know, Twitter's an interesting domain. It's not necessarily a client space, but it is a great place for discussion. Some of the coolest discussions I've had have been on Twitter, but it can also go off the rails very, very fast. So just be very careful. It can consume you. It's an Aladdin's cave, Twitter. So just be conscious of choosing your platforms and choose them well, and, you know, stick with them. They're an ever evolving piece. Okay, so I mentioned tips and tools. What I was thinking of is, before we go straight into tips and tools, maybe the hits and the misses, because we've all had them, let's face it. Beck, you mentioned that you're on YouTube, but you think you might only have 8 followers. So who wants to share a hit and miss, or a miss?
You can go first. I've embarrassed myself to start us off, so I'll layer on that later.
So me misses are putting content without thinking, without a strategy, and just posting something and without necessarily thinking about consequences of it. Whether it be, you know, you talk about a personal brand, whether it be if you posted I don't have political views, but if you posted a political view, or if you posted having a little bit too much fun on a Saturday night with your mates, you know, you've got to be aware that everyone can see it. So hits are probably more, my misses are probably of omissions than actual mistakes on things that I just haven't done. So that's probably where I kick myself most, thinking that, you know, we had a reasonable platform after coming into some luck with some awards, and effectively you would think that if you were in that position and you're a marketing guru, you would have capitalized on it, and we did nothing. We went, thanks very much, and went straight back to work. So things like that, where you think, oh, might have missed an opportunity, where I've seen other people really catapult their brands from that. So that's one where I felt that maybe we missed something because of probably some embedded, you know, feelings about social media that I had, or unknown risks, or scared of something like that. But not really anything bad or embarrassing like we might get told in a second. Beck?
No. We're doing hits and misses, or just misses?
Whichever one you want, or both.
Yeah, for me, I know what Hugh was saying, and I made a really conscious effort after winning an AFA award to be like, there is like a window here, and I was very diligent with my sort of social media strategy. But misses would, like, I've wasted so much money in this space, and so much of it has been ego driven, and I would go sort of like professional services, like nice photos, professional photographer, like hair and makeup, or videographer, or someone running social media accounts, or like to varying degrees. Like I also would count some of those in my hits category of being like really, really well spent, but not all of it. Like I think, you know, as an individual, I'd probably say $20,000-$30,000 in the last few years.
Wow.
In this. And I want to be really transparent around that. And not all of that has been money well spent.
And you've got to do it, don't you?
Right. And anyone who's ever had a professional photo taken knows that good hair and makeup and lighting and a photographer always looks better than you bouncing out of bed. And so it is reaffirming. It builds your confidence, but it's not always necessary. It's not a prerequisite for being successful in this arena.
I think that's one of those misnomers that we have, is that, I need to have all this stuff before I can get started, versus just get started and then figure it out. And if you get a massive following, then maybe that's when you go, okay, now I need to pump it up and, you know, spend a lot on hair and makeup.
Yeah.
That's in the central budget.
I won't make any comment on that.
Yeah, we just politely laugh.
Yeah. Our hits would be now. Our hits would be starting to come now as we are being more intentional. We are growing more brand than we have previously. So doing things on purpose is always better than doing things by accident. But that has meant actually allocating time in our busy weeks and actually prioritizing marketing as a thing, not just doing it, I'll post something at 6 o'clock at night, which is probably what we traditionally did. I think, that's interesting, post that. Or
yeah, I think that's probably one of the biggest traps, is people feel like they finally, you know, go through the process of getting their content together and formulating a strategy and go, I've got to get it out, and they sort of panic. And it's like they're trying to shove their content down people's throats, and you sort of go, God, you know, I've got serious, you know, anxiety from trying to absorb this information from this person. So I think it's, you know, we've got to relax ourselves into that. This is about conversation, and it is about experience. You know, we're in the feeling generation right now, and you know, particularly in these times, in times of crisis and coming out of crisis, you know, we've got to bring humanity back into the content. You know, and I've found in the past, you know, I've had to challenge a lot of advisors in that, look, you know, it's all very good to regurgitate the content, but if you don't put your face in front of people and realize that that's who they actually want to hear from, and that's who they actually want to deal with, then you're kind of going to miss your opportunity. So one of the things that I use very frequently is the SMART principle, which is pretty much, you can apply to anything, including financial advice, but it's be specific, measure, and know what your measure is. So everybody's measurement is different. You know, some people measure success via numbers. Some people measure success through emotion and emotional intelligence, connection. So the action, which really is the underpinning of every strategy. You know, unless you know what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, it's basically going to be, you know, a wasted effort. And relevance. My big thing is that why are we posting stuff about retirees on profiles when that is not the style of client you want to do business with? Like, just don't waste the energy. You know, choose who you want to deal with and actually customize your content to ensure that they are the people that you're reaching, and that that your content resonates and is relevant to them. And then timing. And that's a two-edged sword. Timing is about timelining it to create a production process so that you do know what you're going to be doing in a month's time. And it's not like, oh, hell, it's Thursday and I haven't got a post up. Whilst there are occasions where that can occur, it is important to make sure that you do plan out some of your activity. And also timing as as you mentioned, Beck, the time of day that people are on different platforms. We're not all on Instagram at a set time of day, or Facebook at a set time of day. You know, we'll choose the time of day that we're on that platform. So use your timing wisely. You know, I love to look at Instagram at night, but I very, very rarely look at it first thing in the morning. So if you're going to capture my attention as a prospective potential client, then you should be posting at the latter end of the day. And there are enough analytics around on most of the platforms now to be able to give you a bit of an understanding of when your audience is available to you. So I would suggest you embrace the SMART principle, at the very least, when you're putting some sort of digital marketing strategy together. So Hugh, if there was a tip that you think people really needed to take on board, what would it be?
Making sure they've got call to actions on there. So the purpose of why you do what you do, if it's you're doing a website, make sure your phone number is on it. I've seen so many websites where there's not a phone number or even a contact us on the front page. And I think that's really, you're making it hard for a client. Like, the website is there for a client. If you're doing a post, make sure there's a call to action on it. It's been intentional, and it is being a bit marketing. Sometimes you think, I don't really want to be marketing or things like that, but you actually have to.
Yeah, but
so,
if that's what they're looking for, they're going to get annoyed if they can't find it.
Correct.
Yeah.
You've got to give them what they want.
Correct.
And I think a lot of times people forget. I know I get caught up if I'm doing something, I forget actual. So maybe it's having some templates that you go, okay, at the bottom of it, I make sure there's a call to action. And the call to action might be, make sure you get your financial health check done. Contact us. That's not hard, but not having it means you've just given some clients some information, and they may go, okay. Or list building. That's the other thing that we've talked about. If you want to, I'll leave that one. That might be Bex. I can talk to that if she wants to.
No, that's a good point. My two tips are, if something's important to you but you're not good at it, find a way to outsource or get accountability. So that's where I have invested money in the past, and it's been really valuable because I wanted to write. I kept finding reasons not to it. So I hired someone to be like an editor and basically a coach and give me a kick up the bum so that blog posts went out every week or every month, whenever it was. And the second one is to play the long game. Social media or digital marketing, like, it's not a sugar hit. And having strategy is key, and decisions that I made in 2017 are paying off in 2020, because I've been patient and I've thought ahead, and I've stalked someone, I've commented on their post, I've offered value and value and value and value and value, and then it converts into what it was that I was trying to get out of that.
Almost, you've got to have that view that giving starts the receiving process. It's not a transaction of here I gave, now I get. It's a bit of a, do unto others and you'll have others do unto you. Trust the process kind of thing, I think.
Yeah, I think you've nailed a couple of things there. I think the gifting, you guys, and I was talking before about the, the connection economy. You guys have an abundance of knowledge that the average Australian doesn't have. And, you have the perfect platforms to deliver the essence of that knowledge. And I think that's the key, is just knowing that you've got something that somebody else needs. And it's just how you interpret that, whether it's by hiring a copywriter or editor to give you the kick up the backside to make it happen, or whether it's to sit in front of a camera and do some video, or whether it's simply to put out there a thought piece that is just designed to provoke them into action. All of it counts. And I think, just don't go one tone would be my tip. Make sure, people aren't one dimensional. Our triggers are different as we go through each day, each month, each year. So at the moment, obviously coming out of bushfires and all sorts of other nasties, people are now looking at money in a very, very different light, and they want to know that there are people out there that can help them. And believe it or not, there's not that many of advisors using social media and digital marketing to its true potential. And the only other thing I would add to this is that, particularly during this pandemic, email marketing has become really paramount. And I know, Hugh, you've been quite an advocate of email marketing during the pandemic. But we, you know, particularly working with a number of advisors, just the rate has really gone up quite high in using email to communicate, but not necessarily in the same way as it has been in the past, where it's just a regurgitated piece of content. This is actually writing to people and actually empathizing and giving them reassurance. And I would definitely add that in as a layer to your digital marketing strategy, because it is most definitely part of digital marketing. Any thoughts?
I think a big one is advisors valuing themselves. We do have an enormous amount of knowledge, and there are so many simple things when you talk to your mates about certain financial things that might seem so obvious to us, and your mates just think, oh wow, that's really clever, I never thought about that. Because think about how time poor we all are. You don't think about things like this. You're not going to think about what's a redraw versus an offset account, because you're going to go on a website, you're going to read something, and our financial literacy is so low, you're just going to get distracted and go back onto watching whatever you were watching. So I think we've got to value ourselves in the advice that we give and the information that we do give to people, and people do want that. And although it might seem silly for us, some of the most, what I would think are obvious financial strategies, people look at you saying that's amazing. But then I talk to someone who's in the health profession or someone who's a paramedic, and they talk to me about something that's so simple for them, and I'm amazed at the intricacy of how it all works. And I think, all right, well, it's probably the same by us, but because of everything we've gone through as an industry, I think we've lost a lot of confidence, and we might not necessarily believe in ourselves as much and see the value that we actually do give to people until, you know, things like a claims experience or something comes in, and then you go, wow, I'm glad I helped them, putting someone in aged care, helping them. So I think we've got to continue to encourage each other, support each other, and value what we do, because we play a really pivotal and important role, especially right now with everything that's going on in the world.
I think that supporting each other point is really key, and social media marketing, it allows you to be really clear who you're talking to. And I'm very specific about the person that I'm talking to, and I have no doubt there are a lot of people that, like Rebecca, it's not their cup of tea. But if we also are following each other and supporting each other, then that's fantastic, because like for all the people I don't want to serve, I know that Hugh is a perfect fit for, or someone else is. And because I follow Hugh on Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever it is, and I know what he stands for, and therefore you actually have resources, you have that network. So supporting other advisors, I think, is a huge part of it. If you've got the confidence and you can outwork, like if you're not turning people away, I think we're doing something wrong. Like if you're not kind of rubbing a few people up the wrong way, then you're not being clear on who you are. And so I think that speaks to both of those points.
Yeah, definitely. Before I hand back very, very quickly to Rob, and we cover off in any Q&A, I just want to talk about return on investment. Like, there's so much debate about this, and you mentioned, Beck, about the long game and, I think expectation around digital marketing, but particularly around social media. What's your interpretation of measurement on your return of investment?
First of all, you need to know what you're trying to achieve. Otherwise, you've got no hope in hell of measuring return on investment. And if it is something a bit more nebulous or a bit more qualitative, trying to develop some parameters around that's where I think is a really important place to start. Otherwise, the ego trip can get expensive. True.
Hugh,
what's the question?
The return
ROI.
The ROI. Interesting. So on the website, for me, it is just people getting there. So right now, it's very intentional, and we're wanting to ultimately start to grow an audience. But we've done it only really for clients now and for prospects. We are going to start growing that, and then we will nurture those those people that engage with us, not as a come and become a client, but just in information. And the thought process there is that at some point in time, we will get our return on investment, because they will then become clients when we've told them about the financial issues, and then the financial issues that we've told them about come up in their life, they will think Centaur. So our return of investment there is right now is numbers just coming in. And then once we start to track that data, we'll be able to see, okay, if we get 1,000 people to our website, 100 click, contact us, 20 become clients, we can start to build that funnel of understanding. On the social media platforms, it's more to do with engagement. Who's engaging with me? Who am I engaging with? So there's not a big expense with that, but also from us building digital assets just to raise awareness, digital marketing assets.
Yes, I would agree with you. I think the main thing is that really came from both of you was really obviously understanding the sense of purpose. So, understanding what it is you're doing and why you're doing it is then going to correlate with how you measure it. And not all measurements are, in fact, about, numbers of followers and likes and comments. It is the long game, and taking those people from the beginning through to the moment that they decide to book an appointment and walk in the door. I think you've got to be able to know that you're taking people on a journey and investing in that process. Definitely analytics count, and you should always be considering your analytics, but they should not be the only driver in whether or not a campaign or your digital marketing activity has been a success. You'll know that just by your interactions yourself to some degree. So I think there's some really good insights, and I think this has been a really, really great discussion. You guys have been really fantastic. I think we should probably invite Rob back in so he can address, I noticed there's some questions here. So bring it on, Rob.
Thank you. And God, that was an excellent discussion. I've been locked to the screen, so I don't know how you guys felt, but this has been really, really entertaining. There are a lot of questions as well. So in no particular order, how many paying ongoing new clients do you expect to obtain? The question is around LinkedIn, but other marketing efforts. So and we're just talking about measurement before there, Jenny, which is interesting. But do you measure that? Are you trying to capture new clients per month, and do you have an answer
I think
to that?
it depends upon the activity, and so if you're doing Google AdWords and things like that, then yes, you would be measuring, payday to sort of, to reality into a client. I think it's much harder to measure that through LinkedIn. I think, part of most of the advisors I work with, when they speak to a client for the first time, will ask them how they came to know them. Most people are quite free to say these days, look, I came to you through LinkedIn, or I saw you on Facebook. They're quite happy to share that intel. But I would hasten that it's a challenge to measure it in a dollar value.
And Hugh or Rebecca, do you have a view on that? Do you put a target for what you're doing? I know you were talking about the long game, Rebecca.
I think it's important to consider it, particularly if you've got a really good idea of your cost to serve a customer. And so therefore, if you can look at how much you're investing in, and maybe it's a specific platform, maybe it's a paid ad on Facebook with a book now button, that you get 100 people clicking it, you do like triage calls, narrow it down to 50, you do 50 sessions, you get 20 clients. So how much you've invested and how much it's converting. And therefore, I mean, at various points, it's been like $700 to get one client, or it's been like $4. And so, having a really good visibility on that is important. It's $700 to acquire a client who's going to pay you 20 grand a year, might be fine. But if you're only charging $1,000 a year, then that's just not going to cut the mustard. So it is important on various sort of promotions to be really clear on that.
Hugh, do you have a view?
Yeah, I think with your Facebooks and your Googles, it's easy to track. So your Google AdWords or your Facebook ads, you can really track your conversions from that. But again, it becomes to your ROI. Is it the book nows? Is it the awareness? Is it the reach, the audience that you want to get? And then when it comes to actually what Jenny said, that's actually how I was looking just we have a form effectively when clients call us. The first thing we say is, how'd you hear about us? Because, that's how we grew sort of organically through word of mouth. So we started so we could say thank you to the people who did. But it's funny how people have been, we've seen you on LinkedIn. There's a few of them in only the past year. We've never had that before. There's a couple there I'm looking at now that they've Googled us. So no Facebooks, but we've not done much in the Facebook space. So it's interesting. I still think, but it also goes back to Beck's point, and that maybe by the time they've come to us, there's just been enough trust points that they've gone to our website and then just booked in, and we say, how'd you find us? Oh, yeah, I got it off the website, but they've actually been following us for a year.
Probably a nice follow on from that. And I think, Rebecca, you just touched on it before, but have either of you ever had any success in paying to boost posts, particularly on Facebook, as the person that's asking this? And do you think it could be useful?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, from a business perspective, I've largely used it with like bookings, like book now. That's the objective, or it's a download something, and the downloadables have been really useful for this. For the purpose, yes, it's branding and yes, it's reach, but it's list building. Like that's the exchange. I will give you something in exchange for your details. That's where I've seen the best result on Facebook advertising.
Yeah, I think from my experience, obviously across a number of people, we've definitely applied boosting. Particularly if you don't have a large audience on your page. And you need to grow your audience and your community, then it can be very beneficial to do some boosted posts. Facebook kind of likes you doing it before you go into the ads piece, just to build some traction. So, look, I always recommend that, clients do apportion a budget towards it. It doesn't have to be massive. Like, people don't have to spend a bucket load of money doing it. But if you're going to commit to doing it, making sure that, as Beck suggested, that you've got an end-to-end piece, that the book now button exists, that the asset exists, and that there is a flow-through effect. So, just boosting it for the sake of boosting, it's kind of not going to get you a lot other than more likes and comments potentially.
Yeah. Hugh?
Good points. I've always thought if you were going to do it, it's got to be a really coordinated approach. So there's got to be the what's in it for them, what's in it for you. That's the trade-off. So we will give you something in exchange for email. So we tried to do a boost just recently, just to sort of start to learn and see. And I think there was pretty good, the numbers looked okay, but that was without us having digital assets at the back of for someone. So if we went to learn more, go to the website, which is where I want them to go to, the website. And then on some landing page, it says, hey, here's our free retirement planning guide or our free XYZ in exchange for your email, to do what Beck was saying, that list building. And then you've got to even go one step further and say, well, once we get that, what are we going to do with it? There's no point, being the dog chasing the car and you catch it and you think, okay, now what am I going to do with it? And that's probably where I struggle sometimes. I think, I really chase something and get it. And then I'm like, okay, now what? So it's got to be a really well thought through strategy if you do it.
Yeah, it can be a handy way too if you've been a bit dormant, Rob, on your Facebook profile. And it can be a bit of a handy way to, put a couple of posts in and then just boost one, just to say, hey, I'm back, and wakes all your page followers up. So it can be a handy little process, but you just make sure you know why you're doing it.
Yeah, well, I think that the person who asked that has got a pretty good view from the team here. So how much time, and a question to all of you, and I think it would be very interesting to see the response, but how much time do you think you need to put towards your online strategy each week. And then a sub-question to that is, how do you actually fit it all in when you're a full-time advisor and you've got all the workload? Very curious about what Jenny would say, because you're an expert, and incredibly curious around both Rebecca and Hugh's answer. In no particular order, but maybe I'll throw to you, Rebecca, in the first instance. How much time do you put towards it, and how do you
do it? This would also flow into like the misses for me is consistency. So it's something I have battled with a lot over the last few years. Go through waves. I fall in and out of love with it. When I've done this well, I have had it like a calendar appointment for, whether it's 10 minutes or half an hour, like that's there, you do it, because just waiting for magically to come about rarely happens. And in terms of like, how do you fit it all in? Unless you have a full book of clients, you do it because you need to. Like, it's just as important as servicing your clients. Like, it's something that needs, like, it's like compliance. You have to do it if you're going to be successful in your business. So again, tying it back to that calendar appointment, it means it happens, just like Pilates or like eating lunch or whatever it is. Like, put it in there, it'll happen.
I've nailed the eating lunch part, so
yes.
no drama there. Jenny, can I get your observation? I mean, you have such a reservoir of you've worked with so many people, so I'd love to get it.
So Bex hit the nail on the head. You've got to book an appointment with yourself. So once you've got the strategy nailed, it's definitely really important to mind map what a week is going to look like in your activity, or a month is going to look like in your activity, and tick off the easy wins and book yourself 30 minutes and get those locked and loaded. And then the harder, chunkier stuff, you've got to book yourself a bit more time in your diary. And I love colour. I'm bit of a colour fiend. So the really fun creative stuff, I colour code in my diary, because I know then, okay, I'm going to do something that's actually going to really help people, make me feel good because I'm helping people. And the reality is that type of content is going to not just last for one post, but for continual posts. And always look at how you can really repurpose your content, so you're not tending to have to create new content every single week. That's probably one of the biggest things. We kind of feel like we've got to become content machines, and we've got to, every month it's got to be different. The fact is that, things don't necessarily change that often, so we can repurpose stuff, but just put new commentary over the top of it. But most definitely book time in your diary and have somebody be accountable, that you're accountable to make it happen. That's just the biggest thing, someone that's your accountability buddy to go, hey, you said by Monday afternoon you were going to get this done. How are you? Are you on track? And outsource where possible.
I think Rebecca said you need someone to kick you up the backside. So
yes,
accountability, absolutely. Hugh, can I just get your view on that? Just the question being, how much time do you put?
You've got to realise, figure out how important it is to you, and then prioritise your time. So for me, it's the same as everyone. If it's in the calendar, I'll do it. If it's not, I will, with every good intention, not do it. And staying back late to get it done. There's no excuses in business. So if it's important to you, you find a way to get it done.
Can I just add a point in there? And yes. It's contradicting a little bit with you staying back late to get it done. I was going to say, maybe it's more of a for the women watching this more so than the guys. But I find like doing it in the morning, if it's a visual medium, when your hair's fresh, your makeup's fresh, the lighting's good, scheduling it in and like play to your strengths a little bit there. I'm looking a bit haggard by the end of the day. That's not a good time to sit down and do a video.
That's true.
So this is a big question, and I'm just looking at time, so we might call this as the last question. But if you were starting, what would your advice be if you were a young advisor or a new advisor building their client base from scratch? I mean, I know that is how long's a piece of string, but you've all three of you have had the benefit of, and I think through this podcast, you've looked at hits and misses, et cetera, et cetera. So what would you do if you were your own younger self, Hugh, not saying that you're old, of course, looking back with 2020 vision, how would you, what would you tackle? How would you go about it?
I'd be a lot more intentional in all aspects of my business. I'd know my pricing. I'd know my segments that I wanted, what life stage I want to focus on. So if I'm a young advisor, I'll probably start with wealth accumulators where I can help them. They'll be on the same journey as you. So you're living their financial plan that you are going to do for them. Very clear on fees, never hide behind what you charge, you're worth it. Clear on your investment philosophy, your insurance philosophy, the structures that you do. And then figure out how you then market that. So that might be, I know there was this advisor on stage a few years ago on a tour showing on MoneySoft her wallet, her personal financial position. And that was lovely for people. I imagine other young people who were clients, when they get in that presentation, would say, okay, great. There's a belief there, there's a connection there, connection economy. So that would be my place to start, because I think that was where the low-hanging fruit is. If you're starting with retirees and you don't have the runs on the board or the experience, they may be a bit more apprehensive with you. So start where it's easiest, and then you can grow and develop from there.
Great answer. Rebecca?
I'd build on that with, when you know who you're trying to talk to, talk to them, and you actually know all the answers. It's not creating content from scratch. It's thinking about the conversations you would have for that person you're trying to work with. And then if you overlay that with playing to your strengths, like if you enjoy video, if you enjoy live video, if you hate video and you prefer to write things down, overlay that with whatever is going to mean you do something. That's a good place to start.
Jenny?
I would concur with both of these people, but add in that, have a one-pager and apply the SMART principle. Get specific, know who you're dealing with, know what you want to say, and what, and be very clear in how you articulate your message. Measure it, understand what your measurement looks like. Have an action plan, as I said, a one-pager that's just going to make sure that you actually motivate yourself into something, and make sure that content's relevant. Otherwise, you're just talking to it's hollow. And timing, be very, very consistent. And if there was one platform that I would suggest as an up-and-coming young advisor, have a LinkedIn profile, because at the moment that someone Googles your name, they will find you, whether you've got a website or not. And you can then progress into other social media platforms from there, but make sure your LinkedIn profile sings. And I know everyone has a view that, it's just a recruitment tool, but believe it or not, people do search and they will find you if you have a great LinkedIn profile.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for the very comprehensive answer. I just want to record my thanks on behalf of the AFA to you, Jenny, for facilitating this conversation this morning. Thank you to Rebecca and Hugh. There are many takeaways. You were very rich with your and very generous with your observations this morning. For me, Jenny, I liked your bit about it. Let's not obsess about this. It's not just social media, and I think you all arrived on that. It's not just that. That's not the panacea. I'd like to thank you for having the courage to talk about your hits and misses. And frankly, we learn from each other. In particular, Hugh, I think giving starts the receiving process. God, I absolutely love that. And you've got to be sort of unselfish. That's what I'm hearing in this market. And for me, Rebecca, playing the long game, and super interesting to hear the stuff that you've put in 2017. That strategy is coming to fruition now. So, as I said, I'd like to record my thanks. You've been very generous. Thank you for facilitating. Thanks to the audience for participating and for sending through those questions. Of course, this will be up on the AFA website for people to revisit as well. So thank you to the panelists. Thank you to the audience. And I wish you a good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.